So, there's an official documentary of Ponyo that Ghibli has released. It comes in 2 discs. Oh, it's glaring. How about this? The first disc of the 2 is 5 hours 47 minutes long, and the second 6 hours and 45 minutes. That would total more than 12 hours, which makes it so hard to watch the whole thing. I managed to watch the whole thing, but actually, I enjoyed it. For example, the first image of Ponyo has a different title. It was called Iya Iya and on the Cliff, not Ponyo. Next to the title, you see the image of Fujimoto. Miyazaki had a solid image of him from the early stage. Sosuke is there too, but it's a quick sketch while Fujimoto is drawn bigger and more specifically. Ponyo was a frog at this point, not a fish. Which means it's similar to the Frog Prince, but with the genders of the main character switched. So, you can tell that in Ponyo, a boy kisses a frog queen and the queen turns into a human. The documentary tells you something important like that, but since it's 10 hours long, it also confuses you with enormous amounts of information. Today, I'll go over the outline of this incredibly long documentary to give you an idea. Let's begin from the first part, which is already confusing. Animation director Kondo has a daughter called Fuki. The production of Ponyo speeds up when Miyazaki decides to use Fuki as the model for Ponyo. This is Fuki. Miyazaki screams, "She's exactly Ponyo!" She has a strong personality which is unchildlike. Fuki's already 1 year old enough to grab the feeding bottle by herself. However, she refuses to drink from the bottle unless her parents hold it for her. She's a strong girl who doesn't hesitate to grab the toy she likes, but when it comes to milk, she makes her inferiors. Her parents hold the bottle for her while she drinks from it sluggishly. Super selfish. Miyazaki sees her upturned eyes and thinks, "This is it!" He's instantly inspired. Then it was funny how Miyazaki starts drawing the storyboard, but while he draws, he says, "How adorable! You can't deceive me though." He's saying how he won't be deceived by Fuki's loveliness. He thinks, "You don't listen to your parents, you must be an amazingly selfish woman." Kondo denies that idea. "You're overreacting. Children usually behave like this. Boys or girls, they all act a bit selfishly." But Miyazaki keeps repeating, "No, she can't deceive me, not a chance." And he is determined enough to reflect that image in his character. He previously drew Ponyo adorable, but he changes the girl's eyes to make them upturned. Now, Ponyo looks more greedy. Who tries to get whatever she wants? The narrator says that Ponyo has become not only cute, but also selfish. The character of Ponyo is set at this point. This character rides the huge tsunami waves, sinks the whole town under the sea just to meet a guy she loves. All these ideas flow out after Miyazaki meets Fuki. He already had the plot, but not the main character. Now he's got the perfect main character who is arrogant, mean-looking, and gives everyone trouble to fulfill her desires. He thinks that's lovable. It's lovable, but he doesn't want to be deceived. He keeps telling himself that. You can see each stage of his thinking process if you watch this documentary. Now, his problem was how Ponyo comes to meet Sosuke. This is the famous scene in Ponyo, which I love, where Ponyo runs on water. I just love the way Ponyo runs. It's simply so well drawn. To be more specific, when she steps on water, she slightly sinks into the water. When people draw someone running on water, they tend to make the character step on the surface. In Spirited Away, no, it was Mononoke. In Princess Mononoke, the forest spirit walks on water. When it does that, its hooves slightly sink into the water. That tiny detail shows Miyazaki's amazing image creation ability. Same goes with Ponyo. Her feet sink a little. Meanwhile, look at the second. Oh, the last one. Look, her feet float in the air. But this is not absolutely new. While conventional, Ghibli animes focused on realistic depictions. Miyazaki did it in earlier works like Conan or Lupin because they had comical scenes, or maybe Heidi's opening with the hopping scene, although Miyazaki didn't draw it. And I think running without touching the ground works as a fantasy or comedy scene with a supernatural element, but it was not something you'd see in a typical, realistically drawn Ghibli anime. That's what makes Ponyo exceptional. To make this scene, Miyazaki explained so hard to animation director Kondo that you don't really feel gravity from kids who run. That's why their feet have to pause in the air. For a split second, Ponyo has to pause during the running motion, unlike other Ghibli anime drawings. So she needs to float, not like how you drew her leg up so high. Then Miyazaki suddenly stands up and starts demonstrating. He says, I think some old anime has this type of image. Then he tries to stop his legs mid-air again and again. Like the ones he saw in old comic books, which he tried to incorporate in Ponyo. And on Ponyo's character development, Miyazaki had already come up with a scene where Ponyo steals Sosuke's ham from his sandwich. She bites on it like a piranha, which portrays an egoistic but also downright greedy Ponyo. Miyazaki has this theme of portraying the progression of a woman through different characters. For example, genuine Shita from La Puta eventually turns into tough Dola. Miyazaki connects the two characters, but he doesn't depict the transition from Shita to Dola. So it's hard to imagine how Shita becomes Dola. Selfish Ponyo is in the early childhood stage of submissive Shita. Hinting that even Shita was once super selfish is the only way to connect her with Dola. Ponyo first comes out as a selfish girl. Then, when she turns into a 10 or 12-year-old girl later in the movie, she becomes a very kind girl. Near the climax scene of the movie, Ponyo gives a baby what she likes. It proves how she has grown as a kind girl. A little girl who was originally egoistic like Ponyo grows up into a mature young lady like Shita, but reveals her true nature as she grows old like Dola. Then, finally, she turns into Yubaba or Zeniba. Miyazaki completes the entire life of a woman by depicting Ponyo. Now, listen to what Miyazaki said about Ponyo in his essay called Turning Point. Ponyo is the natural state of womanhood. She immediately acts upon her possessive instinct and rebels against everything that tries to keep her from it. Eating, embracing, and chasing, she doesn't think twice. She breeds like rabbits, she's vulgar, and she has many lovers. How she will grow as an adult woman will depend on what kind of male she meets as a little child. Animation director Kondo struggles to understand the essence of the movie. His biggest question is Fujimoto. He asks, why does Fujimoto marry Grandma Mare and doesn't divorce? Miyazaki responds that by saying, oh, that's the eternal image of a man, always being oppressed by women. Art director Yoshida is there too. Look at his disgusted face. Yoshida's facial expression changes as soon as Miyazaki says it, but Miyazaki continues. Grandma Mara has thousands of husbands. Now, we know the shocking fact of how Grandma Mara has thousands of husbands and Fujimoto is just one of them. Miyazaki adds, Fujimoto embodies the eternal suffering all men experience. But both Kondo and Yoshida are completely struck dumb by what Miyazaki says. I think this is a great part of the documentary. To follow up, Miyazaki explains we can't apply our own common sense. He sounds like he knows the truth. Then, that meeting is over and Miyazaki goes upstairs. I felt so bad for Yoshida and Kondo, who looked so worried. Anyway, this is how the production of Ponyo started.